Welcome to Chapter 18, Conservation of Biodiversity, Video 1. This is Ms. Lewison. Biodiversity is actually extremely important, not only for nature, but for us as well. High biodiversity means there are more plants and animals to use as resources. Also, all of our crops started as wild plants. Most of our medications have originated from plants and occasionally even animals, such as aspirin from a royal willow, or digitalis, which is a heart medication, from foxglove. Nature also stores carbon through photosynthesis, drives biogeochemical cycles, provides pollination for our crops, creates soil, provides natural pest control, and purifies our water and air. We also enjoy nature and can even make a living through ecotourism or photography. All of these are reasons why biodiversity is so very important to us. Unfortunately, biodiversity is decreasing because we are currently in the 6th major extinction event in Earth's history. Genetic diversity is decreasing. Genetic diversity can decrease for a variety of reasons, including a decrease in population size, as well as a decrease in genetic variety from both intentional and unintentional breeding. A decrease in genetic diversity means a population will not be able to adapt as easily to changes and may lead to extinction. Species diversity is also decreasing. IUCN uses 5 different categories, and each species is assigned to a category. Notice that IUCN does not use the term endangered, but uses threatened instead. Of the 50,000 species that have been evaluated by IUCN, 1/3 are threatened. 1/3 of all reptiles, fish, and amphibians are threatened or near extinction, and 1/4 of all plants are threatened or near extinction. In the United States, we use different terminology. Endangered species are those at risk of extinction in the near future. You may have noticed that all the status have the stipulation of in the near future. That is because extinction is a natural event and all species will become extinct at some point in the future. If a species is of great concern, they are referred to as critically threatened species. Examples of critically endangered species are the California condor, whooping crane, giant panda, and black rhino. Threatened species are those species that are likely to become endangered in the near future. A decrease in ecosystem diversity leads to a decrease in species diversity, which results in a decrease in ecosystem functions like pollination and purification of water and air. This graphic from your textbook shows the relative percentages of birds, mammals, and amphibians that are listed by the IUCN as threatened, near threatened, or of least concern. Why is the percentage of threatened birds so low? Why is the percentage of amphibians so high? Well, in both cases, it has to do with where they live. Birds live in trees, and our neighborhoods have trees, and we like birds, and even put out bird feeders. So birds are not as heavily impacted by human presence and activity. Amphibians, on the other hand, live in water, and almost all of our bodies of water are polluted. Water pollution is a major threat to amphibians. It is very important that you understand the ways in which biodiversity is being lost. You may want to use HIPCO, HIPPCO, to remind yourself of the different ways. This is what I use. The H in HIPCO stands for habitat degradation. Habitat degradation includes habitat fragmentation, habitat destruction, and degradation of habitat quality. Less habitat through habitat fragmentation or habitat loss leads to smaller populations, which can put those species at risk. By the way, habitat fragmentation is like putting a road through the middle of the habitat. It fragments it, makes it into smaller pieces. So it might be just almost as big, but now it's in little pieces, and not all species will cross those roads. Okay, so this diagram is from your book and shows some of the decreases. Okay. I in HIPCO is invasive species. An invasive species is an organism that is thriving outside its natural range. An invasive species can outcompete native species, causing them to become endangered or even go extinct. Not all species living outside their natural range become invasive. Most of the plants in your yard are non-native, yet they do not become invasive. Invasive species are generalists, and because they have no natural predator in the introduced habitat, they can dominate the new environment and outcompete the native species. Invasive species can be introduced accidentally or intentionally. An example of accidental introduction is the zebra mussel in the Great Lakes. The zebra mussel larvae were introduced to the Great Lakes in the bilge water of ships. Many marine species have been introduced due to bilge water. Now ships are required to dump their bilge water out at sea so that they lessen the chance of introduction of organisms along the coastline. An example of an intentional introduction is the cane toad. The cane toad was introduced to Australia to eat the cane beetle. Unfortunately, the cane toad doesn't eat the cane beetle, but they ate all kinds of other things in Australia and have outcompeted many native toads and frogs. Once a species is introduced, whether intentionally or accidentally, it is very difficult to eradicate it and very expensive. If possible, we can mechanically remove it, such as pulling it or catching it, but this is very difficult and some areas may not be accessible. In several instances, the introduction of a predator has been used to control an invasive species biologically. Unfortunately, this has led to the addition of the predator as another invasive species. Lastly, the use of fire to ecologically control the invasive species is possible, but this can also damage other species within the ecosystem. And there you go. The top picture is kudzu, and the bottom picture is zebra mussels. P is for pollution. There is a wide range of pollutions, and we will discuss them specifically later in the year. For now, you need to know a few different things that pollution can do to cause biodiversity loss. The use of pesticides, along with heavy metals, acidification of water bodies, and oil spills are reducing biodiversity. There are a variety of different pesticides in use. Some kill a wide range of organisms, including non-target or good organisms. There are also pesticides being used that are endocrine disruptors. Endocrine disruptors are chemicals that prevent or inhibit reproduction. If organisms are unable to reproduce, then there is a potential to lose the species within the area, which reduces the biodiversity. Another pollution that is reducing biodiversity is excess nutrients, specifically nitrogen and phosphorus. These nutrients originate from human waste and fertilizers. Through dumping or runoff, these excess nutrients make their way into ponds, lakes, and the ocean, where they can cause a process called eutrophication and result in dead zones. Eutrophication is a process in which excess nutrients cause an algal bloom. The algae eventually die and are decomposed. The decomposers use up all the oxygen in the water and cause hypoxic or anoxic conditions in the water. Fish and other organisms that cannot survive in the low oxygen levels will then die. Almost all lakes in Florida are eutrophic, and there is a large dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. Another example is thermal pollution. It can also reduce biodiversity. The temperature can be out of the species' range of tolerance, and therefore the species can no longer survive in the area, reducing biodiversity. An example of this is the wastewater from a nuclear power plant. All of those pollutions we will go over specifically when we get to our pollutions later in the year, but a few of those you just need to be a little bit aware of now. The other P in HIPCO is for population, human population to be specific, because an increase in the human population increases all the other letters. More people means more habitat degradation and loss. More people means more invasive species. More people means more pollution. And more people means faster climate change. And ultimately, more people means more over-harvesting. So all the other letters increase if you increase the human population. Climate change is the C in HIPCO. Climate change is different than global warming. Global warming is one cause of climate change, but it is not the only cause. Climate change is just that. The climate or temperature and precipitation patterns in an area are changing. These changes can be caused by a variety of conditions, such as deforestation. If the temperature and precipitation patterns in an area change, not all the species in the area may be able to deal with these changes and will either leave or die. Either way, it can reduce the biodiversity in the area. Climate changes causing biome shifts away from the equator and towards the poles. Because many plants cannot move rapidly, this is of great concern. So how do plants move? Do you know how plants move? Plants move through seed dispersal. So if you have a plant that does not reach sexual maturity until it's 50 years old, and then it produces seeds, and then those seeds have to grow to 50 years old, that plant cannot move very rapidly. Lastly, we have the O for over-harvesting. Humans can hunt, fish, log, or just remove too many animals from an area for that species to survive. If an organism is harvested or removed faster than it can reproduce, it will eventually no longer exist in the area, reducing biodiversity. Humans have hunted many species to extinction and are currently doing it, even though we should know better by now. Examples are the dodo and the passenger pigeon. We are currently in the process of fishing bluefin tuna into extinction. This is going to, okay, that's kind of abrupt. So, So this is going to wrap up video 1 for chapter 18. If you have any questions about this video or chapter 18, please let me know so I can go over that information in class. Have a nice day.